What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
Now,
she had a kid.
Yeah, Virginia Dare.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
What year was that?
That's 1587. So,
Yeah.
You know, that Virginia Dare is born, and John White witnesses that before he leaves for home. Now, a couple of things from that. Obviously, so he writes that letter in 1593, and he writes it from Southern Ireland, where he's, at that point, he's working for Thomas Harrier in Southern Ireland, you know, because as a painter, you're also a good map drawer. As you saw, he paints pretty good maps. So he was working on a map of the land in Southern Ireland at that time. So, you know, but there's nobody prepared to, you know, to fund him a trip to sail back to find out if his family is still there. He is the last person to see them alive, and then they vanish.
And there's no trips that happened between then and Jamestown in 1607?
Well, there were a few attempts, but we've got about 3 documented, certainly 1597, 1602. But these were half-hearted attempts because one of them actually records that they go to Chesapeake Bay because they think that that's where they were meant to be. But, of course, they weren't. They were at Roanoke Island.
Oh, so they didn't even go.
So they didn't even know where they were going to look. They didn't actually know that they were on Roanoke Island. And so they're very half-hearted attempts. There's a couple of attempts to find them, but nobody's absolutely sure where they're supposed to go.
Okay.
And by this time, John White,
there.
if he's not dead, he's very, very elderly. So I think he was alive in Ireland in 1606 from the document that I found.
Oh, so we don't have a record of his death?
No, we don't. I'm pretty sure I know where he lived, and I have a good feeling I know where he was buried.
All right, well, we got to send you there with your bubonic plague suit.
Yeah, absolutely.
You go check it.
Yeah, so the village of Ballynoe in County Cork is pretty sure where he lived, and that's where he's most likely to have died. So there are a couple of follow-ups from all this, which are kind of interesting, and this is where we get into trying to, you know, little fragments that come up in historical documents at later dates that kind of allude to what might have happened to some of them. Now, before we get into them, I just want to say, you know, people ask me, what do I think happened to them? When I submitted my book to my publisher, the last chapter in that book was never written because I just wanted to present the facts. And they said, you've studied this for 7 years of your life. And I mean, I have literally slept that damn research over this time. It was an obsession, you know.
Yeah, even the bibliography.
You know, my late wife actually convinced me to finish that book because she said, you must, because that's a very important piece of work. And I did. That's why the dedication is to her in the front, because she never saw it published. She didn't live to see it published, but there we are. Anyway, so where was I?
The last chapter you didn't write. Didn't
write it because they came back to me and I said, I just want to present the facts and let people make up their own mind. Present all the evidence and say, that's the real story. That's the truth. That's exactly what happened. There's all the evidence. You make up your own mind what happened. And they said, you studied it 7 years. You must have an idea. You must have your own conclusion. And I do. And the analogy I want to use is take 4 people from different walks of life, give them 4 choices of places to go. Are they all going to agree on going to the same place?
No.
Thank you. And that is what I think about Lost Colony. Now, how I would break that down is I think it very obvious that all the families went to Hatteras because that was the most secure place. Manio was down there, friendly Indians, you know, and it was a good place. It was the most obvious place for at least some of them to go. It's fair to say probably some of them were killed with the, you know, fights with the Indians. I think some of the military men were also there in 1585. They were part of the military colony. So they're back there in 1587. They knew the colony was supposed to go to Chesapeake Bay. It's my belief that some of them would have made their way to Chesapeake Bay on the basis that if a rescue mission comes, they might be looking for them in Chesapeake Bay because that's where they were supposed to be left. If you can't trust the pilot,
that makes sense.
Let's cover the bases here, guys.
And how far away did you say that was again?
I don't know the exact distance, but it took them about 3 days, I think, 3 to 4 days to get there from Roanoke. But the point is they knew where it was, okay, and they knew how to get there. And then they also had an ocean-going pinnace. They had a small ship that had made it across the Atlantic Ocean. And so, therefore, they had a crew for that ship. I think it is possible that one of the other things they might have considered is to send that ship back to get help in England. And the great question is did they ever make it back?
Could have crashed, yeah.
Could have sunk, could have whatever. It could have been set, But if they did, I think it sunk without trace, because if they'd have been captured by the Spanish, then they would be in the Spanish records somewhere, and they're not.
Haven't you talked about and looked into research on, though, the whole potential DNA lines in the area, which gets to, did they start? I mean, maybe the Croatoan women were like really hot. There's a lot of
It was a
males
matriarchal
there.
society, and you have to bear in mind, matriarchal society, women choose their men. Can you think about the women of the day? They got this guy that wears a loincloth and he's got a bow and arrow, and then they got this guy who's got a suit, almost a suit of armor,
shining armor. Yeah.
shining armor. He's very fancily dressed. He's got this fire stick that can kill at X distance, etc. He's going to be able to protect the family. So, I'm pretty confident that there was intermarriage. There had to have been. It's impossible to think that 85 single men did not, at least some of them, intermarry with a society where the women chose their men. It's absolutely impossible to consider that. And I have got something here that might actually confirm some of that to take it forward. And I will come back to your question where you're taking that. Really interesting. The first record we have after the events is all over. So John White is in Ireland. He probably died around 1606 or so. Richard Grenville is killed at the Battle of Flores in 1591. So there's really no one around by the time from that Roanoke period, by the time Jamestown is settled. Okay. So Jamestown settled in 1607. Thomas Gates arrives a little while later, about 2-3 years later. His mission is to save Jamestown because it's dying out. They're committing cannibalism. It's falling apart.
Committing cannibalism?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was going on. And so he's sent on a mission to save Jamestown. Okay. And he receives his set of instructions from the Virginia Company of London, which is a new company, by the way. This is a different set of investors from those involved in Roanoke.
Okay.
So this is where we get into corporate espionage and things like that here, because it's kind of interesting. One of his instructions is, and I quote, at Picaracamic, where you shall find 4 of the English alive left by Sir Walter Raleigh, which live under the protection of a Werrance, a king, enemy to Powhatan, by whose consent you shall never recover them. He's told there are 4 men of Raleigh's alive and well, but he's instructed never to try and recover them, never to try and get them back. Now, think about it. Those 4 men would be representatives of the previous company that was set up to set up Roanoke.
Yes.
So that would mean they had a prior claim on America over the company that set up Jamestown.
And it's right there in writing.
It's right there in writing. He's specifically instructed not to rescue them.
But how do they know that those 4 are there? Do we not know that?
There must have been communication, at Jamestown. There must have been that communication going on, because we know the whole Powhatan story and Pocahontas and all that stuff. So that's where this information comes from.
Wait, where does Pocahontas tie into this?
Well, what I'm saying is that the Jamestown colony was among relatively friendly Indians. So, they weren't at war with them. So it would have been easy to find information. And they were probably told that, we've met you guys before. There's 4 of them at so-and-so place. And they would have probably been kept as, shall we use the word, slaves, because they knew how to build houses and they knew how to make fire shot and stuff like that. So there's all of that going on.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.